Okay, Exodus 4:23. Whoever's there first, just start reading.
And I say to you, let my son go, that he may serve me. If you refuse to let him go, behold, I will kill your firstborn son.
Okay, so you have, as I said last week, hi Pat, as I said last week, we have Israel is my firstborn son. And we talked about that quite a bit, that when you quote John 3:16, it is far better to say the only begotten son, because God has already claimed a firstborn son in Israel. So to quote it, he is my one and only son, as the NIV, there's a contradiction in the Bible then. Okay, so when you quote this particular verse, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, it's just better terminology and it takes care of any possible contradiction. And why? Because the second replaces the first. We know that again and again in the Bible. The second replaces the first. Jesus is replacing Israel. Jesus is also replacing Adam. Jesus is replacing a lot of things. But anyway, that tells you that. Then he says, let my son go. Okay, if you don't, I'm going to kill your firstborn son. And it took him a while to get around to it. It took 10 full plagues, and it was the 10th plague, as we know. We are not there yet. But anyway, and he's not speaking to Moses now. He's still instructing Moses what to say to him. He's not speaking to Pharaoh. He's speaking to Moses about what he's going to say to Pharaoh. And so I'm kind of getting ahead of myself is what I'm getting at. But anyway, go ahead. Verse 24.
At a lodging place on the way, the Lord met him and sought to put him to death. Then Zipporah took a flint and cut off her son's foreskin and touched Moses' feet with it and said, surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me. Okay, what happened is, here God is speaking to Moses, and he's saying, I want you to go, I want you to do this, and I want you to do that. And then all of a sudden, Moses is on his way doing what he was told, and the Lord, capital L-O-R-D, which means Jehovah, or the physical manifestation of Jesus, in my opinion. He appears, just like he appeared to Joshua, and he says he's going to kill him. And it sounds like, is God fickle or something? The answer is no. The covenant with Abraham was that we can go back there. Let me see if I can find this. The covenant with Abraham was very clear, and disobedience carries penalties. All right, so we got to go to, I think it's Genesis 18. Let me see. We'll get there, and it says here, is it 18? Makes the covenant, and that's when he takes his son Ishmael and he circumcises him. When was that? Might be 1920. Anyway, where it might be 16 too. Hang on. Let me go back. Ishmael, I've heard him. Behold. Oh yeah. It says here in 17. Exactly what I said, right? It says, I will make you exceedingly fruitful, establish my covenant. As for you, you shall keep my covenant. Verse 10, let's see here. My covenant, which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male child among you shall be circumcised, and you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised, every male child in your generations, who is born in your house or bought with money or from any foreigner who is not your descendant. He who is born in your house, going down 14, and the circumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. Well, if you go elsewhere in the law, Leviticus and Numbers and all that, it'll say a person must be cut off. It implies that he's to be killed. Okay, it doesn't just mean that he's excommunicated, but at other times, I believe you can infer excommunication. But in this case, I think it means that if this person isn't willing to obey the covenant, he's to be killed. Well, Moses didn't circumcise his children when they were over in Sinai, right? Gershom and what's the other one? Gershom. Anyway, he didn't circumcise them, and so the Lord's angry. You didn't keep the covenant. You need to do this thing. So it seems like the Lord is fickle. He's not. He's making a lesson for us that obedience is important. Okay, so here we go. Zipporah took off a stone, took a sharp stone. Ouch. Oh, cut off the, and she probably did it pretty quickly too. I mean, if you don't do this thing, whatever, wow. Cast it at Moses' feet. Surely you were a bride of, what a blood groom of bride, or bride of, whatever. It says, where am I? You are a husband of blood to me. So it's just one of those things that the symbology there is that, we're to keep the covenant, we're to be circumcised,
in our hearts as New Testament believers. Paul says circumcision is not of the flesh, etc. Anyway, but just the whole thing that's going on there, just so you take it in context, is that he did not fulfill his obligation to circumcise his children. All right? So it's a little bit late. The Lord is forgiving. As a matter of fact, in the 38 years walking in the wilderness after going to Mount Sinai, none of the new people were circumcised. And so what did they do when they got over the Jordan? I think this is probably about Joshua chapter 4. They got over the Jordan River went back to its flood stage, and then they all circumcised each other. And they called the place, I can't remember. Anyway, it means in English, the Hill of Foreskins. So they actually had a place where they all just, and then they had to sit around and recover before they went over and took over. It's what? Oh, yeah, it is. Here, we'll go there just because might as well see that. I'm not making up a story. Let's see here. Came 10th day. Okay, here it is. Joshua 5, it says, at that time, this is verse 2, the Lord said to Joshua, make flint knives for yourself and circumcise. Actually, you know what? I read a commentary that flint knives are actually more sanitary than steel. I can't remember where I read this, but because of, the property of flint and all that. So it still seems kind of brutal, but anyway, whatever. Make flint knives for yourself and circumcise the sons of Israel again the second time. So Joshua made flint knives for himself and circumcised the sons of Israel at the Hill of Foreskins. And do they give the name in any of your... Gibeath Ha'araloth. Okay, so that means the Hill of Foreskins. So they just threw them all in a big pile and made a hill out of them, I guess. I don't know. Or maybe they did it on a hill. I don't know. Let the blood run down the side of the hill. I don't know. I'm kidding, of course. But you see, this is something that the Lord wants obedience out of his people. And, during that 38.8 years, they were already under disobedience. They were all punished. The people weren't... following the Lord anyway. So afterward, they were circumcised at Gibeath Ha'araloth. And let's see here, verse 27, please. Or 26.
So he let him alone. It was then that she said, a bridegroom of blood because of circumcision. The Lord said to Aaron, go into the wilderness to meet Moses. So when he went and met him at the mountain of God and kissed him. Okay,
so we have them finally meeting up. He said, Aaron, your brother, is going to come out to meet you, and they're meeting up. While we're speaking about that, you look at the terminology of the bridegroom. Jesus said, the Pharisees, I think it was, came to him and said, why don't your disciples fast and mourn? And he said, how can they fast when the bridegroom is with them? When he's taken from them, then they will mourn, right? Okay. Or then they will fast, I guess. And anyway, the symbolism is that Jesus is our bridegroom of blood. Okay, he shed his blood for us. And so you see the symbolism. I kind of skipped over that in the last verse, but he is our bridegroom. He gave his life. He shed his blood for us. And so we are now circumcised in the heart rather than in the flesh. So this is all pointing to Jesus, and I didn't mean to skip over that. But anyway, then, as I said earlier, they were scheduled to meet each other. And now they're meeting up, and oh boy, verse 28 or 27 is, he's happy, kisses them. Go ahead, verse 28.
And Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord, with which he had sent him to speak, and all the signs that he had commanded him to do. Then Moses and Aaron went and gathered together all the elders of the people of Israel. Aaron spoke all the words that the Lord had spoken to Moses and did the signs in the sight of the people. Okay, remember Moses said, I'm a man of slow speech or whatever. And so that is why, in case you weren't here during that particular lesson, Aaron is Moses' mouthpiece. He's the one that's speaking for him. And, okay, go ahead. And the people believed, and when they heard that the Lord had visited the people of Israel, and that he had seen their affliction, they bowed their heads and worshipped. Okay, from this point on, we're going to read again and again and again about the Israelites doing what? Mumbling and groaning. Okay, here they are. They believe the signs, and they bow and worship. And this kind of goes along with our walk. Are we willing, when we see the signs of the Lord in our own life, he demonstrates to us that he is the ruler of salvation. We come to him. We know that we're saved. We know it. We come to Jesus, and then after that, are we going to have a strong walk where we are walking in the faith and
assured of everything, no matter how bad the valley is? Or are we going to be weak in our constitution and be like these people? When affliction comes, oh, you know, better that we went back to Egypt. Or why do we have to make these brick without straw? You've brought all this trouble on us. Listen, the Old Testament and the New tells us, and anybody that's been a Christian for a while knows this, that you're going to have affliction and you're going to have trouble. How you deal with that is how you will be rewarded in heaven. I'm absolutely sure of it, because what is it? It's by faith. Blessed is, blessed are you that you have believed, but blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. Well, believing doesn't just mean all of a sudden you're saved and you get all these rewards for eternity. That faith carries on as you go through your Christian walk, right? You know, if I suddenly get disheartened and say I'm not going to preach anymore, I'm just done with the Lord. I'm not going to lose my salvation, but I am going to lose all the rewards that I could have had based on my faith in Jesus. And so that's what I'm trying to get at with this particular verse. These people, this is the first time they've seen the signs. This is like being saved here in our own lives. And then all of a sudden, after that point, are we going to obey the Lord? And who are the two people that listened to the Lord and never had any conflict with what happened in the Bible? At this time, two people were named that actually got to go to the promised land. Joshua and Caleb. Good. Okay. Right? Everybody else whined and moaned. They just walked through their Christian life and they just and I got to tell you, it depends on the church you have. It depends on the pastor you have. It depends on the training you have. Because you can go to, and I have decided whenever I preach a sermon, I'm not going to bring in a person's particular name. I did that at the beach a few weeks back, and I felt bad about it. Whereas when we're in a training class, I have no problem bringing up a bad preacher, or what I think is a bad preacher. But last night I mentioned a bad preacher, but I didn't say his name. I just don't think it's right in a sermon to go degrading other people. But I will say in this class that there is one guy out in Texas, and you can probably guess, and if you don't, I'll tell you who. Giant church, and never says anything of any value. Never. People read his devotions every day and they feel all good and happy with themselves, and they read his books and they feel all good and happy. They listen to his sermons, and the sermon application is different every week, but the sermon is exactly the same. You can listen to one sermon today, listen to one next year at the same time, and it will be identical. Okay? The people are never fed beyond salvation, and some of them aren't even saved. Okay? And as I said last night at the beach, when he was asked, is Jesus the only way to heaven? He wouldn't answer. He said, well, I'm not God, and I don't. Listen, this is what this Bible proclaims, and he wouldn't do it. So his name is Joel Osteen. And I have no respect for the man at all. If he can't stand on this, and if he can't feed people with this, then he's not the man that people, 30,000 people, what'd you say?
His wife is a co-pastor with him.
Yeah, you know what? And the Bible doesn't allow that. That's right there. That is right there. The first sign that it's a ministry you don't want to be a part of is somebody says, Pastors Ron and Paula White, or, you throw in the wife. I'm sorry, I didn't write this book. I'm not anti-woman, and if it was up to me, I'd say, yeah, go ahead and do these things. But it's not. God said they're not to teach or have authority over a man. That's his choice, not mine. Anyway, I didn't know that. I never knew that until right now. But that right there is a sure sign that he is out for the money and he's not out for the Lord, because he's got the same book we all have. So, anyway, good point to take here. They bowed their heads. They worshiped the Lord. They accepted the signs. And then the rest of the time, for the next 40 years, all they're going to do is whine and moan. Sorry, that's not what the Lord wants. He's not going to take away your salvation, but he will take away your rewards, and he will certainly take away your joy. And all of the people died in the desert. Yes?
I'm sorry, doesn't it say in Revelation in the end times that there will be false prophets that will just tell them things that are tingling?
Oh, that's not in Revelation. That's tingle their ears. That's Paul. Might be Peter. Anyway, tickle your ears. I'd have to look up the word tickle. But yes, it does. It's not in Revelation. But Revelation is, the end times. That's going to be just the entire time of apostasy. Everybody is. But towards, where is that? That's in 2 Timothy. Hang on. 2 Timothy. It takes me a minute to get my brain in gear, but we'll go there, seeing as how you asked. And whoops, I went too far. Charlie, don't go too far. Don't go beyond God's word. You're in the concordance, Charlie. Let's see here.
We're going to find it, and then we're going to move on to the next verse. But you asked, so we might as well get